Hello and welcome to Wrestling Headlines Survivor Series War Games review live after the show's gone off the air. A little bit of a delay. I was meant to be live. I'd set it for 4:15 in the morning. I did that like 14 hours ago. I was like, I reckon it will go through then. Little did I know, that is exactly when it finished around here. And I've just been hit by like 10 minutes of constant problems in terms of loads of different little things. So am I actually happy to just be live? So please let me know if there's any audio issues. I've had so many problems just getting this live in the past 10 minutes. So Howard, how are you doing, Howard? How are you doing? Hopefully not as tired as me. Hopefully not. But anyway, yes, hit me up about Survivor Series, War Games, your quick opinions on anything, whatever. I am a very sleepy British man, so I'm going to get through my notes I've taken during this. Hopefully it's all going well. Again, there's nothing worse than 4:15 in the morning, everything going wrong. That's the first one I should say. This is obviously live for Wrestling Headlines. If you want to get all your latest wrestling news, go over to Wrestling Headlines for all your latest news and all of that jazz as well. Not having any issues, thank God. Thank God. Seriously, I've been so tired going into today, and I thought, maybe a gym session. Me and my friend went to the gym earlier. It's one of those. We had one of those sessions where I'm just hurting. It just hurts everywhere. Good session. It does mean I'm sitting here at 4 a.m. We'll find out if I can get out of my seat because my thighs hurt. We'll see. Anyway, speaking of people who hurt, that's my transition. I'm sticking with it. War Games, main eventing the show, bookending it, starting it as well. I really enjoyed this show. It felt a bit like if you've played the new WWE game, 2K22, and they've got the GM mode in there, and it tells you on that game what you want is a really strong opener, a really strong ending, and in the middle you can do what you want. You can dither. If you have a match in there that's relatively good, that's fine, but really it's the beginning and ending. It's like, this show was like playing 2K22. And that was just like, you had your opening match, you had your final match, and in between didn't really matter. It didn't really matter. I'm keeping you awake, Howard. That is I guess for the safety of the listener, I will just keep on talking. I'll just keep on going. No downtime. I've got cider next to me. I'll probably drink some cider at some point because I was drinking it with the football, and I've just carried over through this show, and it helps. It helps. Anyway, also not forgetting, because I'm English, cider does have alcohol in it over here. I know that's an American thing. I found that out recently, that cider in America isn't alcoholic. What's wrong with you? Put alcohol in your cider. What are you doing? Anyway, tangent. So anyway, War Games. I felt like it was a success. It's what the show as a whole, the reception as a whole, especially going off of Twitter, going off comments in the kind of that manner. It's a quick little scour. It seemed to have gone down well. Weirdly, in terms of like the other side of measuring metric, the Boston fans weren't particularly loud for most of the show. They were loud for the important bits, which that's good. In terms of like all the Sami Zayn notes, in terms of all the big highs that came out of the women's match as well, they were loud for all those moments. But when it comes to the a bulk of the show and whatever, I definitely, I could sense that the Boston crowd weren't massively loud for it. And I've seen a couple of people on Twitter saying a similar thing. Just it wasn't the loudest crowd that there's ever been in Boston. It's like, really? But it's Boston. They're normally pretty good. I think that's why it stood out, actually, is that the Boston crowd is normally pretty good for WWE shows, so it was odd they weren't particularly going for this, especially when on every other metric, the show seemed to do quite well. It's a weird one, But anyway, I really enjoyed the show. It got two War Games matches that really, really did work. Because I personally, I didn't enjoy last year's War Games. And I don't think I enjoyed the previous one either. I kind of felt like I'd had my fill with it. And I was personally enjoying the Blood and Guts matches more. But I feel like these War Games, they gave something. There's a purpose of them being there. And I felt like the most recent iterations in NXT kind of started to hit that wall of, it's that time of year, we do the thing. We get Regal out, he goes, War Games! And we get underway. But for this show, it felt like both matches, it did feel warranted. When the actual matches were happening. I've not been the biggest viewer of the TV as of late, So maybe if you're somebody who watches the TV all the time, you can be like, oh, they've got this little nitty-gritty problem with this over here. Yeah, I don't have those problems. I enjoyed it. I did a moonsault on top of the cage. Like, yeah, I'm perfectly happy. Becky Lynch sat on people. Crazy woman. We'll get to that match later. But overall, I'm leaving this show with a positive. Like, it had a weird vibe of a B show, which is odd for Survivor Series, given that it's not that. And I think they were trying to cement this as, like, again, one of the big four, have it on Thanksgiving weekend as well. And as well, it's the big War Games kind of thing, so we can, like, completely redo Survivor Series, give it this extra oomph. But I don't know if it had a bit of a B show feel just because of the shorter card. It's only 5 matches, but of course, 2 of those matches are an hour long. So it's like the Royal Rumble. It's like, please don't time me out. please let me sleep. Please, Hunter. Anyway, so I'm going to start off with the men's War Games match in terms of the actual reviewing. So Survivor Series, it's a thumbs up overall. And it's, obviously, you don't really need to see any of the matches in the middle. I've got very little notes on them. A couple of them were fun, but it's not really like... the main focus is War Games. For both those matches, did they deliver? That's the main question. And for me, both of them did. And in a great news, for completely different reasons as well. Like, the men's one is a lot of kind of more the emotional story side of wrestling, whilst the women's one is like great flow, momentum, hitting high spots, the kind of like the exciting openness type of stuff. So it's different side of the artsy fartsy wrestling nerd. You get to see with me tonight. So first off, the men's one, Brawling Brutes, Drew McIntyre and Kevin Owens versus the Bloodline. The sirens, I love the presentation of it, the sirens sounding as the cage is lowered and the games begin. Like, I like the presentation of it all. And especially with the feel of like the way the show started. Like, you had Ozzy Osbourne singing the song, you had the cage like lowered there already, and when you got that really long video package, and I'm sitting there going, are they going to play the entirety of War Pigs? We've been here for a while. And that starts to happen. But then you get into the arena, and Michael Cole is there with Corey Graves next to the cage that is already there, and the sirens are sounding as they're running down what's going to happen. They're going through the rules. It's like, okay, immediately, this is a very unique and different feeling to arriving to a pay-per-view. You got 2 people in front of a cage, because like, there's a bit of smoke in the arena and everything, and they're talking over sirens. Like, this is a different feel to the start of a show. I like that kind of feel they have for War Games, just up the ante. It probably helps when you're there live. It really makes it feel different. But in terms of the flow of the match itself, yeah, for me, the standout stuff is towards the end of this match. Whilst I felt like the women's match was a lot better at the kind of flow throughout the whole match, I feel like for this one, it was more to do with the kind of story stuff towards the end of it. The momentum was fine enough during it, and there's some really cool high points as well. So Butch started out for the goodies, Jey Uso for the Chief. Don't really have a lot to really point out on that. Butch was going after the wrist that Jey Uso had taped up. Ridge Holland, our first game changer, in the question of, does it ruin a War Games match if it's the good guys getting the advantage, meaning that you're watching the bad guy fight from underneath? I feel like if both matches had done this, I'd be like, come on guys, what's going on? But the women's one had it the way round, which is, for me, the right way round. You got to have the heroes fighting up from underneath. But for the story they were telling throughout this match, I feel like this one, where it's the tag team of Butch and Ridge Holland, them being on top of Jey Uso because of what was going to come next, is fine. It's perfectly fine. Because what comes next is obviously the siren goes for the Bloodline team. Jimmy starts to run out because he's going to have to save his tag team partner. Of course Jimmy's next. No. Roman stops and tells Sammy to be the one to go and save Jey. It's like, oh, it's so good. Forcing the two to work together. Because throughout the entirety of the show, we were getting segments of Jey Uso talking to Roman Reigns, saying, I've not trusted him since day one. We've got a problem here. What are we going to do? Roman Reigns, very calmly, just says he's going to have a word with him, and he's going to see if Sami Zayn is telling the truth just by having a chat with him. He'll know. So that's Paul Heyman to go do that. Later in the show, before the main event, he gets that, he calls him in. Sami Zayn is there, and they have that conversation, and it is so encapsulating. It's just you're just drawn into this whole thing, just sitting there in silence, watching these people have this just conversation. It's so good as Sami Zayn is trying to convince Roman Reigns that he's on the Bloodlines team, and at the end of it, all Roman Reigns says It's a let's go do it, and then gives him a hug, and we see Roman's face. It's not exactly all happy times. It's, there's some thoughts on that face, some contemplations going on, which means when this decision happens, you can interpret it as this is really smart Roman having found his decision. He's going to force these. He's not going to pick a side. He's going to force them to work together. But what comes later? No. There's so many layers to this that I love it. The amount of stuff it's setting up is just... We just haven't seen this amount of setup in quite some time in WWE. So to see the amount of stuff going on in this match, there's a lot to pick apart. I'm going to do my best to do it before my brain crashes on the late night. So down goes Sami Zayn, and they somewhat work together. Until Drew McIntyre enters the match. The big Scotsman making those odds infinitely more difficult in terms of Roman's plan of working together. That'll get you back on the same page. Yeah, we're going to fight Drew McIntyre. Good luck with that. So after failing at that, obviously, Jimmy finally enters the fray, bringing in tables and quelling Sami and Jay's descent, because they were starting to break a bit. Kevin Owens' chair and intensity is what he brought in. We got our first tease of KO and Sami quickly interrupted as well in that little moment, which is lovely. Solo Sikoa, the heavy hitter, evening the odds for the Bloodline. No selling, getting his head thrown into the cage as he takes a tag of work for our goodies to take down. He was the big strong boy. That was our Solo Sikoa. Sheamus, the last man for his team. The momentum swinging in their favour one last time before Roman Reigns entered. Last as both teams found themselves in opposite sides of the ring for the stare down. If you've watched NXT takeovers and you've seen the War Games before, you know what this is. Either side of the cage, right up against the wall, they start staring at each other. We've seen it in the past where both these kind of launch at each other, start hitting each other over the ropes, which I think it's good they tested that in NXT because it's a little bit awkward. This time our good guys just charged into the ring with the baddies and started having a kerfuffle in there. And all of this built up. It's a nice little thing where it seemed like Roman Reigns was more decisively going for the finish once he entered. If only it weren't for those pesky kids. And the thing just got a little bit more convoluted. In that convolution, Jey Uso accidentally hit a super kick on Sami. This is our next note. And again, each note has got so many layers to it. So he hits the super kick on Sami. By accident, he goes down. But then he shows no remorse in the aftermath. Like it takes Jimmy Uso kind of concentrating him. Because Jimmy's kind of caught between two worlds of like going after the next guy or checking on Sami Zayn, and Jay just has that look of, why are you checking on him? Like, I don't care. It's like, oh, it's just like there's a chance that Sami could misinterpret this as what Kevin Owens was foretelling. It's like the Bloodline will turn on you. Is the words he was saying. Turn on them before they turn on you, and he could have misinterpreted that. It was all there. It was all there. For then. You got an awesome 1D off the top rope from the Usos just to kind of like refocus that pairing. It met with asshole chants as they did it. It's right in the aftermath of Jey Uso showing no remorse for hitting Sami. But Kevin Owens saying the only reason he joined this match was to get to Roman Reigns, found himself one-on-one slugging it out with the champion. It's like, oh yes, a great tease for the future as he counters the champion's offense. But we don't get to see if what he did would have counted for a 3, because the referee count is stopped by Sami Zayn himself. The commentator is just shouting, is this it? Is this proven that Sami Zayn is giving his allegiance to the Bloodline? And that's when we got our KO and Sami stare down. Sami, neither of them touching each other. Nothing there. No physical contact. But he saved his tribal chief from defeat. But there's nothing there. Until Jimmy Uso jumps in with a super kick and Kevin Owens captures it. Sami Zayn, almost in a reflex, saving his friend, hits the low blow on Kevin Owens, and that's their first physical. That's their only physical contact, really. Just hits the low blow and sets him up for the haluva kick. It conflicted the entire time he's going for that haluva kick, just trying to shake it off as he then shares a nod with Roman, that's the thing that convinces him, right, I'm going to go for it. Nails the haluva kick, offering. And then the awesome callback to their Battleground match where he hit the haluva kick and Kevin Owens collapses into Sami Zayn, who's holding him upright. And then he just sees Jey Uso and lays him down and tells him to go ahead. I was like, offering up his friend for Jey to splash and get the win. confliction all over Sammy's face, over Jay's face as well, in terms of, was I wrong? Do I actually trust this guy now? Oh, so much to read. So much. It's just, and it kind of gave us some like short-term answers as well. As after the match, they were hitting some great beats, some great moments. Jay finally accepting Sammy and giving him a hug, to a great response from the crowd. For me, this is what kind of saved this match from kind of, it ended in a story beat. But it also gave us a massive character progression moment for multiple characters. That was a huge thing. Jay finally accepting Sammy and giving him that hug. That crowd response really was like, okay, this has been worth it. You've earned that. Sammy, however, in the posing afterwards, where they're lifting up We The Ones, Sammy's constantly looking over his shoulder. And I feel like a lot of people would have noticed that, because it's Sammy that the focus is on. He's constantly looking over his shoulder at his friend Kevin Owens, who he's just looked down on. Like, he is still conflicted about what he's done, even though, like, in spite of giving his soul to the Bloodline, he is still conflicted over his actions. But also, at the same time, if you look at Jay and Roman's faces, even though he gave the hug, even though you saw how much it meant to Sammy, he's jumping up for joy and he's all joyous and everything. Even though all that happened, Roman had a very similar face to when he hugged Sammy. As in, I think Roman's made his decision. And I don't think Sammy's going to like it. Of course, it's more of the wheels are in... This feels like the moment where the wheels are in motion with Sami Zayn eventually ending out of the group. And then this is so far removed from, he's going to be kicked out sometime soon because you're doing the tension stuff. No. You go the opposite way. You really make it feel like he's part of the group. You make it feel like he's part of the ship. He's part of the crew. And that's when you do it. Of course, you need a few weeks just to like cement this fact. You don't do this until the new year. Maybe Royal Rumble or something. And that's when it happens. Like, imagine if Sami Zayn wins. I don't know, because what I really like is I don't know where they're going. Do you do a Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens kind of alignment going into WrestleMania? Do you do Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble, and you kind of use that to do some tension with Sami Zayn? Does Sami Zayn win the Royal Rumble? You go after Roman Reigns, and then you do all the drama and the tensions and the falling out of the Bloodline, but all within that one storyline. There's a lot of places you can go with this, but all we've got at the moment is actions and kind of character faces to those events. And even though Jey Uso gave him the hug, it's kind of like he's not the guy you should be afraid of. He's not the guy whose opinion actually matters. And I just loved all of that. The shifting focus and all that stuff. Every beat around Sami Zayn was done to a T throughout this show. Absolutely nailed it. The main event match itself, I kind of felt like, it was mostly fine. But then towards the end, they obviously hit all their high spots. People start going through tables. So that makes the Pavlovian crowd happy. But story beats nailed. Job done. And you can get everybody then amped towards the Royal Rumble. Which is, we've got 2 months now without a pay-per-view. And I love it. Mr. gets to fall asleep for a genuine amount of time for 2 months straight. Yeah, suck it. I get actual sleep. Can't wait for it. Can't wait. But yeah, so that was the main event of War Games. Now I'm going to go through the card in order, from the Women's War Games match all the way down to the final match. Normally these shows are longer, so normally that's actually a statement of, right, let's get going, whilst this one is, I've got 4 matches to talk about. 4 things. Yeah. So glowing praises for all the Sami Zayn beats on this show. Absolutely glowing. I'm also going to glow about the women's match. Really enjoyed it. And obviously this is coming off of the interesting introduction for this with the Ozzy Osbourne. I think I said Ozzy Osbourne was miming along to War Pigs as well. Whilst I was playing about the intro. With the sirens sounding, the cage is fixed now, and now it's the team explaining what the F is going on with this unique intro. It's time for Women's War Games! I keep making, every time I do that William Regal voice, for my version, he's so much older. There's like no gravel in his voice. Really weak old man. I feel like I'm offending him. Anyway, Team Belair versus Damage Control and Friends. It's Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, Alexa Bliss, Asuka and Mia Yim versus Damage Control, Nikki Cross and Rhea Ripley. Belair and Kai kicked us off. The baddies with the temporary upper hand with the entrance every 5 minutes. Io Sky, the first off the timer, and letting us know how awesome she is. Like our first proper usage of the unique double ring setup as she dove under, like, in between the top and second rope with a crossbody, like, just through the middle, like the middle of the two rings. Like, yeah, that was unique. She may have struggled to do a corner handstand like a minute later, but she absolutely nailed a double springboard dropkick afterwards. Like for me, War Games doesn't need to be crisp, smooth, everything fine. Like, no, it's inherently messy. So I'm absolutely fine with something not going quite so right, just because, well, there's meant to be like the weapons that will come into it eventually. It gets a little bit more violent, and you get people thrown into cages and all sorts of things. Like, yeah, this doesn't need to. I'm perfectly fine with this. Like, the odd move not being right doesn't like take me out of it or anything. No. Inherently, I want this match to be a little bit messy. I don't want it to be clean. So one thing going wrong then brings it into your head of, what else could go wrong? And it really does like add to the feeling of this match. It helps add to the danger. Speaking of folk who are awesome, out came Asuka next for our Joshi stare down. It's just like, oh, just give us this match. Like, it's just like no like interference angles and things. Like, just give us Asuka, Io Sky. That just please. And I'm going to stutter every time I say Io Sky, because in my head I have to contemplate for Io Shirai going around. No, that's not a name on the main roster. I'm too much of a nerd. But yeah, Nikki Cross then came out next, and she brought in the weapon Anarchy, kendo stick after kendo stick, trash can lids multiplied thrown in, to the Pavlovian response of, we want tables. It's like, yeah. You go under the ring, the Pavlovian response happens. It's going to take... There's a few things where I watch Monday Night Raw now, and it really does feel like the starting of the reconditioning has happened. It's just been so many years of conditioning fans to respond to certain things in certain ways, and one of those things is, like, instead of getting invested in the story, you just chant for the thing. Previously, WWE, the stories weren't always strong enough to kind of warrant, no, please focus on our story, kind of like reconditioning of stuff. And I don't know if Vince McMahon even knew he was doing it. So the reconditioning of, like, telling a story, you're going to get a weapon, it's going to take some time. It will eventually kind of go away. But, like, we're currently in this period where, no, the quality has gone up. You can care about this stuff now. However, the Pavlovian responses are still there. You've been conditioned to, oh, you just chant for the thing when that happens. Okay, cool. And for me, we want tables. It's just that. It's a conditioned response, which is like, sometimes I feel down. I feel not down. That's too strong a word. Sometimes I feel like, oh, that's a bit unfortunate that you're telling this generally good thing and you're being met with a response of, we want tables for just like this thing. It's like, yeah, like it doesn't matter. Like this table thing just isn't important. Like, okay, we're doing a much bigger deal here, but it's a Pavlovian response. Within time, things will change. Anyway, they got the tables. You bloody be happy with that, Boston. Alexa Bliss was next, entering with a nice dropkick to a unwise trash can lid wielder. That's easy for me to say at 5 a.m. The match swinging back to evens. Our first big spot as Nikki hit a crazy crossbody off the top. I was very surprised because at this point there's only a handful of people in the ring compared to who'll be there later. And we've already got our first dive off the top. So, okay, this is also a nice little... This is the first match. A nice little thing to also condition the fans that people will be jumping off the top of this cage. And this is the first one. So, okay, expect it. It's basically what we're being told here. All the women down for Bayley to enter with a ladder and a table. The Chaos Ante upped with each heel entrant. A great image as well as the baddies pose with Bianca trapped in between the rings via a table. And they're all just striking their poses. Like, yeah, awesome. Loved it. Speaking of baddies, Michin Mia Yim was out next to launch more trash cans. A great spot to show off the cage setup with a series of suplexes from the different corners as well. Because then you get to do the wide shot as you get to see all the different people in the different corners. And then you go to each one and you see them all down. Your excuse to do the above shot, which looked awesome. And also got across the chaos of the match. And sometimes when I say a shot looked awesome, it's more because of what it's doing and what it's showing and kind of how the way it kind of aids the story. And for me, the over the head shot always aided in getting across the amount of chaos. Like, you see like close ups or you see the thing happening, but then just to have that shot just showing the aftermath of it all, where they're all just lying there, just down. It's like, oh, yeah, really, really good. And Rhea Ripley was out last for her team, giving the one last heel advantage run before Becky Lynch is out last to the guttural announcement of like, and now let the War Games begin. Although it's a female announcer, I just wanted to be like I'm in Rome for a second. I like it. Becky rained fire, her clashing with Bayley getting a nice pop, but Ripley was nicely set up to be the biggest of those. And just a nice little note of where we're going after this match. It looks like Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley is the big match being teased. If I'm looking at stuff coming out of this, and under that you got Becky Lynch and Bayley as well, so you can have her fighting Damage Control just to stave off the Rhea Ripley thing until it's time to really launch it. The match really picked up with all 10 women in the fray. Finishers whipped out to near full saves. Io Sky moonsaulting off the cage obviously looked beautiful as hell. Like this is where it really hit as well. Like, good lord, those vertical shots up high looked so great. Alexa and Nikki handcuffed to each other in an interesting bit. Just like a comically large handcuff. Just the actual chain between them. It's like, what are you trying to do here? And I think Nikki was trying to handcuff Alexa to the cage relatively high up so she would be stuck there, and that's her done for. But the chain was so long that in trying to do that, Alexa was easily able to fight back and then attack her. Yeah, it was an odd bit. I thought, oh, is this setting up something? But that was it. That was it. Our SummerSlam moment with Lynch and Belair finally getting their fare, coming together against Damage Control, and which led to the finish of the match. Kai and Sky on a table as Lynch just sits on them from up high. It's like, okay. It's like, Kai went onto the table, Sky went onto the table, Bayley was coming. I'm just like, this table doesn't look strong enough for three. Belair then does like a almost KOD type thing, just lifting Bayley into the cage wall. The crazy woman. And speaking of crazy, Becky Lynch literally just sits on down, climbs up to the top of the cage and hits a leg drop as poor Io Dakota just gets sat on. It's like all fun and painful. But yeah, a really good ending to the match. Becky Lynch may be a few inches shorter after that, but a genuinely really, really great way to start the show, to get across the War Games concept in a really coherent manner as well, and all the different things that can happen in the cage, the craziness that can ensue, the people jumping off of it. You get that all across before you then have to do War Games with the story you really want to tell at the end of the show. It's really, really strong stuff. And yeah, important for that kind of reason for me. It's just, you use this to get the concept and the way War Games works into the crowd's minds so they're fully understanding it before they then have to pay a bit more attention to the story and the characters in the later one. Because you don't want them just paying attention to the craziness of War Games when there's all the other stuff as well. But you do this match, and then you can do that. Yeah, it's all fine. All fine. Anyway, we got our first Jey Uso backstage confronting Roman Reigns segment. Really great stuff. Both of those segments that happen in the show are just, you're just drawn in. You just sit there silently, just like, just watching two characters just bounce off each other. Oh, it's so good. We've got our first singles match of the night. AJ Styles versus Finn Balor. It's insane that we got these two wrestling on pay-per-view to such little fanfare beforehand. Like, I think it was like a replacement match at TLC when everybody got ill, and I remember being like a huge, like, oh my god, these two, that's amazing. But yeah, this time when it's built up a bit, it's a bit strange. It's a bit odd. It's just like, this would feel like it's a huge deal, but it just kind of feels like it's just a match. Yeah, but unsurprisingly, these two lads absolutely won the fans over with their efforts. The way that this match played out, absolutely, you just got drawn into it. It kind of, almost in spite of where it is on the card and the kind of build they've had, they managed to really get you invested into the flow of what was happening. Yeah, Michael Cole on strong form, just really making you just realise how much better it makes the wrestling, just characters feel like they've got this huge history. There's like this huge world instead of just this confined events to the one place. As Michael Cole just lists the accomplishments of both guys in Japan, just giving their history, like name dropping casually the Bullet Club, Kushida, Apollo 55. It's got me. This is where he's going through the two men's Japanese history. The latter in Apollo 55 being Balor's tag team with Ryusuke Taguchi. who the Irishman split from led to the formation of the Bullet Club. So, important reference to drop Apollo 55 rather than just, oh, he was in a tag team. Isn't that cool? So, no. Directly led to the formation of the Bullet Club. Him splitting away from that group. So, yeah, massively important. But the match itself, it was bubbling along nicely. However, you had Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, you had Dominic Mysterio, and you had Damien Priest just like ringside. So there was quite a lot of stuff. However, those ringside lads then ended up brawling into the crowd, and they used that to kick the remaining pace right up. They used it as a gear shift, and they just sped from that moment. Some great reversals and sequences, upping into like move stealing and a damn strong final flow. A phenomenal forearm from the win in a really strong match. And by the end of it, I was really, really into it. And I think it was when it started, obviously, you're reeling from the War Games match, but it's not. But the story for this match wasn't that grand anyway. And Judgment Day, I think, because a lot of the damage of Judgment Day was done before Triple H took over, and it's been more slow kind of damage repairing almost of the group ever since. But they still feel almost solidly mid-card. Like, you don't really feel like they're that big a deal. However, they're getting there. And a match like this really helps. And AJ Styles is also on the repair as he kind of gets solidified as a strong talent again to lift him up the card after whatever the hell Vince was doing with AJ Styles the last little while. This was AJ Styles' first pay-per-view win since... I can't remember what it is. It's a ridiculous statistic, and it's even more if you remove all the tag team stuff. He's lost so many pay-per-view matches. Well, he's not won a singles pay-per-view match in a long time, which is crazy. He's AJ Styles. that's not how you use AJ Styles. That's crazy. But yeah, you're seeing it now. This is right back on track, which is awesome to see. Right, sip a cider, then get onto this match. Ooh. Oh, it's still fizzy. SmackDown Women's Championship. Ronda Rousey versus Shotzi. Shotzi, back to her best presentation. It's great to see. So this match had that. Also, similar notes for Baszler and Rousey as a legit pair. Great to see. I feel like it's the right way to go. You can also use that to build up stories and things off of their relationship, be it them staying friends or not staying friends, whatever. The match was otherwise fine. Like, a run of sloppy spots didn't help, but yeah, it was fine. Like, it was. I started zoning out whilst I was watching it, and then certain moves were hit. I was like, oh, that's nice. But then I ended it. Once it ended, it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna remember that. But yeah, it was fine. Like, for me, just like the shallow nature of the SmackDown Women's division right now is on full display with this match. Like, as the champion defends against a TV level built opponent, and I don't mean that as like, oh, Shotzi's rubbish. That's not what I mean at all. What I mean is the amount of work that was put in to build the character and the kind of momentum going into the title match. It just felt like a TV title defense. Like, this wasn't a big deal kind of thing. Like, this is gonna be, you're gonna try to convince me for a second, but we know what's gonna happen. And they didn't really waste my time with it, to be fair. Like, Shotzi fighting against the numbers odds, but her own caution to the wind approach, just throwing that in there, cost her in the end. Her diving into the crowd, I say the crowd, I use that term loosely. She threw over Ronda Rousey, threw over Baszler, climbed up onto the barricade, and then jumped through her and three planted fans, for some reason, sat right near the barricade with no more fans behind them. It's like, oh yes. As some people in the crowd chanted "Holy yes," but it didn't catch on. I feel like a lot of the crowd had already zoned out because there were a couple of sloppy moments. I think they were gone by that point. So it's a bit of a shame. But her diving into the crowd and the follow-up 10 count that followed meant that she got Ronda back into the ring. But in her slow climbing back up, because she's the one that did the dive, that allowed Ronda to just recover, climb to the top rope, arm drag her off, which was awesome, and then into the Piper's Pit, followed by the armbar submission for the win. Not much more to say. It was fine. And unfortunately for Ronda Rousey, she's kind of building a kind of... Her 2022 run has not been great. And a lot of that was, seemingly when she was brought in, there wasn't much of an idea or plan for her. Vince booking her as a babyface was just not working. And her run now as a heel football or just badass, whatever she is, works a lot better for her character. But what she had in 2018 and 19 was that really strong depth of opponents. So not only was Ronda impressing, but she also got to impress against strong opposition, or at least strong challengers. And she doesn't have that here. It's like the division isn't strong enough really for her feuds to hold much interest, because you don't believe that any of these challengers are going to beat her, so you don't really care. You don't get invested. So it's a difficult one. It's obviously out of her control, but yep. Anyway, then it came the Sami Zayn Roman Reigns segment. I've already sang the praises for that. Really, really strong stuff. Can't sing about the Sami Zayn segments strongly enough. Before the United States Championship, Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, Austin Theory. This was lovely fun. First note though, Austin Theory out to a big Beyblade ad. Beyblade? Like, I'm sorry. Like, oh, the calling of my youth. It's returned. I was a kid in the 90s. Yeah, I remember Beyblades, the late 90s, the little spinny things. You battle them. Yeah, I remember those from like, what are they, 20 something years ago? They're making a comeback. They're making a comeback, baby. That's what this was. As I watched this, and Austin Theory coming down, because I was so confused, because he just had a thing spinning in the background. I was just like, I don't know what this is, and it showed them battling. I was like, that's a bit weird. But then the word Beyblade came up. I was like, I'm sorry, what? He's coming out to a Beyblade advert in 2022. What is going on? This is so strange. Yeah. My main note coming out of this match: Beyblade's making a comeback. That's what this was about. Yeah. I'm not going to buy them. Like, no. But if I had a child, I would probably buy one. To be fair, it's like, oh, I enjoyed these when I was young. I'll get that, like that feeling when you do that. Aside from that, though, that was strange, very strange. I've never seen a wrestler walk out an entire Titantron and the entire kind of logos around. Like, it's all done like that. I was like, and yes, Howard, they didn't. My thing there is with the Beyblade thing. They didn't go fully into it. They literally just had Austin Theory coming out, and the commentator did the advertising spiel, but then they didn't go into it anymore. Like, he's not wearing Beyblade gear. He's not got any dragon things on him. He's got nothing else there. He's wearing generic gear. He's not advertising anything. It's not a cartoon where he's in the Beyblade stuff, if you remember that. Like, no. Literally, it was just, he just walked out and then his Titantron just changed to a Beyblades advert. Michael Cole reads out an ad read, and then you see that all of the advertising walls, or the walls where normally it just says the name of the wrestler coming in or the name of the pay-per-view, they've changed to a Beyblade advert as well. Like, it was so weird. And I think the best thing was that you realised his Titantron had changed, so you go, oh, has he got a new Tron? Then you realise it's something spinning. It's like, this is weird. In the bottom corners, you can see trademarks and copyrights. Like, oh, that's like an advertising thing. And it slowly clicks, and it's Beyblade, and they makes it even more confusing. It's so confusing. Well, why is Beyblade going under like a rejuvenation kind of advertising thing? Like, we're not into the era where we start looking back at my youth as nostalgic yet. Like, my era is only just turning 30. Like, we're not there yet. Yeah, we're not there yet. We haven't been broken and then in just dire want of nostalgia. We're not there yet. Life hasn't broken my generation yet. We're a few years away from that. Don't worry. It is and it will. But we're not at that point yet. We still got that naivety of youth is still somewhat there when you're 30. We haven't. I've been told it's 30 as soon as 31 hits. It's that quick. I think my favourite thing was like you're told that it's in your 30s where your body starts to get like problems and stuff. But my favourite description of it was someone saying that they felt absolutely fine at 30 and were like, oh, that's nonsense. Then 31 hit, and it's like, right. And each year you'll get one thing, and those stats stack. So you, like in a video game, we would just get stacking stats where of things going wrong, and by like 5 years in, 5 years in, you got 5 years worth of stacking problems. It's like, then it hits. It's like, okay, yeah, but yeah, I don't know what Beyblade's up to. That was such a weird moment. I just realised what's happening. Anyway, the match itself was an entertaining little three-man ditty, like a fast pace that never died down. Bobby Lashes, the big powerful gear shift as Rollins and Theory got their licks in. The final flow was almost no downtime, just constant, just non-stop. It was no downtime in there, like a bang, 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 constant flow. An amazing spot for me as Lashes locked in the Hurt Lock on both Rollins and Theory. That looked brilliant. Just the visual of it with their arms flailing above them. Oh, wait, fantastic. I realised because I had issues with my camera as well as my microphone and everything whilst coming on live. I'm not framed right for those arm things to really come across. But trust me, on my end, it looked all right. Anyway, that spot was great as well, but that was shortly followed by Rollins having both Lashes and Theory down as a spot starts to recognise the pattern. I was like, oh, now it's Seth Rollins' turn to hit his move on both of them. However, he then fantastically he pops off of Austin Theory and down onto Bobby Lashley. He's like, oh yeah, that looked great, like an awesome step up kind of variation of it. Yeah. However, Austin then tries to capitalise and tries to throw Seth Rollins out the ring. It doesn't work. They kind of counter each other a bit, and Theory, in his failing to play opportunist, accidentally has fortune swing in his favour as following a spear interrupting a Rollins blame buster. So Austin Theory's lifted up into the air. Lashley then charges in with the spear, taking down Rollins, and Theory lands on top of Seth and gets the surprise win. You saw somebody in the crowd going, oh, come on, why? And I just love that. Love that reaction. Because me personally, I love the match. I've been liking the kind of decisions they've been making with Austin Theory to change him up, to just like shifting things about to give him a little bit of a reset whilst keeping him relevant at a similar level. And I think this was somehow getting the Money in the Bank off of him and then giving him a title run without it, with his kind of new kind of direction. And I personally, I'm fine with it. Of course, I've not watched as much Raw as other people, so I don't know if it's if you're watching every week, it's kind of like, ugh. But for me, where I've watched like one or two in this run up, it's like, yeah, I'm fine with this. It's all right, yeah. And the match was really fun, and the ending fit into it. And he kind of had a feeling it had a kind of ending where he can then give more of the same thing again, because they didn't outstay their welcome. I'm perfectly fine to see more of it, and he had kind of fluke win, so you never really got your actual finish. So nothing is settled. And I'm fine with that. It's not a classic, WWE repeating matches. Like, no. This is more warranted, where it's just the flow of it was so exciting, you got your fluke finish, and therefore you don't get the ending that you could get. So you don't know who the actual winner would be were it to properly play out. Ow, I just elbowed myself on my desk. But yes, that was that. Anyway, that was Survivor Series War Games. Overall, I really enjoyed myself. Again, when I say it felt like the 2K22 kind of version of a pay-per-view, I just mean that really the only things you need to see are the opening and closing matches. I felt like AJ Styles, Finn Balor and the United States Championship match, both I enjoyed way more than I thought I was going to. So I give a massive shout out to those two. I was really invested in both by the end, which means that they did a really good job, especially when I, as an audience member, just care about War Games, and they managed to convince me. They managed to suck me into both those matches. Valzy Shotzi was like a nothing TV title defense. It's like, yeah. It's one of those where I watch it and go, it's going to suck that you just know Shotzi's going to get hate online, and she just doesn't deserve it. It's just like, come on, guys, like, get a life. Come on. But the match was fine. It was fine. It was just a TV title defense on a pay-per-view. Because and the Raw side is really strong, so the SmackDown side is and the way that this past SmackDown felt a lot stronger because the Raw side was there. So well, but yeah. Anyway, both War Games matches definitely worth a watch. Really enjoyed them for two completely different reasons, and it's not a case of just watch the one with the intriguing story. No. The women's one as well did a really, really good job for me, because I'm also not forgetting this is the first time a lot of people are seeing War Games. It's the first time on the main roster to like the big audience, and not a lot of the audience actually watches NXT stuff. It's a really small minority, so this was like a big introduction type thing. So yeah, I noticed a lot of the notes in that first match just to get the concept of how it works across. So that was a huge like bonus to how much I liked it. It's in the nerdy critique side of stuff. I'm like, I'm seeing what you're doing to get the things across. Yeah, I'm breaking it down. Yeah, good stuff. Anyway, that was my review of Survivor Series for War Games. What did you think? Let me know in the comments below or whatever on Wrestling Headlines on Facebook, where we get a lot of engagement on Facebook. And hopefully there's no one being mean to me. I know how social media works. Anyway, you can follow me on Twitter at the Damn Implicat. That's damn as in damn. Also, the implications with 2 S's over on Twitch. I maybe promise I'll stream soon. My friend is desperate for me to play Stray and stream it. He played it when it came out on PlayStation Plus, and I was ill because it was in our country we had like a 40-degree heat day. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. I'm sorry. It was very hot, but I caught COVID. I had a temperature, and that's all through the same point that this game called Stray released. We get to play as a cat. But I was ill, so I couldn't play it the week it released, and then by the time I'm kind of back into stuff, it was the same week as SummerSlam as well. That's why I didn't cover SummerSlam. I was out on my ass with COVID during intense heat. Like, be happy that I'm not been knocked back by that. Anyway, yeah, I've been on a massive tangent. I need to wrap up this show because it is 5:15 in the morning. But I really enjoyed War Games. I do recommend it. That's my review. Oh man, I could have cut this review short. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I recommend it. That's me out of here. Also, follow Wrestling Headlines on Twitter. That's Russell Headlines Wrestling without an E. Also, Wrestling Headlines over on Facebook, all that stuff. Thank you for watching, for liking, engaging in any commenting, talking, and engaging in any form, any manner. Always appreciated, never taken for granted. And with that, I get my rest. If you've not watched War Games and you listen to this review, go watch War Games. I give it my blessing. I've given it my Thanksgiving blessing. Yeah, not a holiday I celebrate because I'm not American. Anyway, with that I bid you adieu. Adios.